Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today is day 5 of this mega week of goal planning videos, and we are finally to the point where I get to start setting up my 2020 bullet journal. So I guess this is technically my 2019-2020 bullet journal migration video. So as you can see, I don't have my old bullet journal with me, but I do have a couple of other things, including my new bullet journal, which if you guys saw my bookbinding video, you'll know that, well, you will have seen it before I cut the edges down, but this is now what everything looks like all cut down together. The one thing that I forgot to do is put a bookmark in, but we'll get to that later. So I have a couple of different things that I'm gonna show you guys so you can see how I am planning to set up for 2020. So let's jump right in. So I have a little test booklet of my bullet journal, but I actually used it to kind of plan out spreads because I have a new size. I'm so used to doing things in A5 that I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of practice doing that stuff. I have my Reflect and Recharge workbook along with a couple of ideas for quarterly goals. And then I also finally have my Projo with my 2020 front of Bujo spreads. So let's take a look at this. So for my front of bullet journal, I have a couple of things that I'm going to do a little bit differently from last year. There are a few things that I'm kind of leaving off, and I actually can show you guys, we can compare with my original DIY B6 Bujo notes with some of the things that I had planned to do. So I'll show you what I kind of changed. So what I've got is I want to have the same sort of top 5, just the keyword, like what I have in my current bullet journal. I have it on the fly page in my Leuchtturm. So I do want to have a little place where I have all 5 of them just kind of global, like is it started, partially done, completely done, that kind of thing. So I want to do that over the contact page, I think. I have my index, nothing to set up there other than actually indexing stuff. I want to set up a full future log, so I'm gonna do 6 months on each page. Then I also want to have my quarterly goals, so that's going to be a quarter of a page each, followed by my top 5 goals, which are going to be the details, and I'm giving myself a full spread. Last year I actually used 2 full spreads, but I think I'm gonna kind of tighten things up a little bit, because if I ever need to do full on, like a little bit more detailed planning, I tend to do that in my Projo, so there's not really any reason to have it on 2 spreads, and I like the idea of being able to look at where I am with all 5 of the goals all on 1 spread. Then I'm going to have my full year of expenses, because I'm hoping, I'm kind of planning, if you guys can see a theme here, that I will be able to get all of 2020 in this bullet journal. We'll see if that actually works, but I'm kind of pre-planning as though I will. Let's see, so next up is going to be my YouTube editorial calendar. So you might have seen, if you guys follow me on Instagram, I did a little Instagram TV video about this massive 2020 editorial calendar that I started laying out. I do still want to have a final editorial calendar where I write in pen all of the videos that I actually post, because that's where I always keep it. So I am still keeping that. So I basically am gonna have January through July and then July through December, so 2 full spreads, followed by a YouTube workflow. So I'm gonna give myself 2 full spreads, especially because this is a B6 as opposed to an A5. I'm gonna lose basically room for a couple of videos on one particular spread. So I'm gonna just go ahead and straight up set up 2 spreads, since I post basically every single week, which is, you know, at least 50 videos, so I need a little bit of space. Then I'm going to do my YouTube tracker. This is one of those I really went back and forth if I wanted to track this or not. And what I finally decided is I'm going to stop tracking Instagram, and for now I'm going to keep tracking YouTube. It's not that it's necessarily important, it's just kind of fun to see the milestones as I hit them. So I'm gonna keep that for now. So based on my original notes, let's take a look at this before we do anything else. Based on my original notes, I was going to do the info page, already have that. I have the full spread of index. I wanted to do the traditional future log, top 5 goals. I was originally going to do 2 spreads, but I decided I wanted to just do 1. Have 1 spread for expenses, so for the entire year. Have 2 spreads for YouTube calendar, that's the same. YouTube tracker and workflow. And then the only thing I'm taking off are my library loans and my K-drama tracker. Now, the library loans, I have kind of gotten out of the habit of actually using it or even filling it in at sometimes. So I'm gonna see how it works not having it, and if I need it, I will go ahead and draw up a spread for it, but for right now I'm gonna kind of leave it off. The other thing is also for K-dramas, especially since I've started watching some other things. It's not only K-dramas, and so I'm just kind of going to see if I don't need the tracker. I might end up doing it again later, or I might put it in a different notebook, my collection bullet journal, for example. We'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm not going to actually do those spreads. And then this is just information about the monthlies, which I'm going to get to in a different video. So that is what I'm going to be setting up with you guys. Now, I've decided on my color scheme. So at the beginning of each bullet journal, I like to have all of those spreads have kind of a cohesive look to them, so that as I'm flipping through, I can very clearly distinguish between front of bullet journal spreads versus monthlies. And so what I've decided on for this particular bullet journal is I want to have, so I've kind of pulled my pens out here, I am going to do this dark gray Pentel sign pen and microns. So I actually have my new box of microns. I used these to set up my teacher bullet journal over the summer, so I think some of them are running out of ink, so I have some backups if I need them. And then I'm also going to use these two as, so I'm not going to do a full color code. I'm keeping the same color code that I had in my last bullet journal that is also my language log color code. I'm going to keep it for my language log. But I realized that I actually don't really use my color code anymore because I don't have as many moving parts to my schedule as I used to do, and because I do time blocking and task batching and all of that on my Google Calendar, I just don't really need a color code in my bullet journal. However, I do use trackers for certain things, and so I like to have two colors, alternating trackers, and so I've decided to change those up. So these are going to be my two colors for my trackers. So this is 312 and N60, so this kind of periwinkly gray and sage, but otherwise I'm not going to actually set up a regular color code, if you will, with like, you know, work, personal, appointments, all of that kind of stuff. So that is what I'm going to be setting up in my bullet journal. So before we kind of dive right in, let me kind of give you a look, let me give you a look at my bullet journal all cut up. So I finally got the massive industrial strength paper cutter. This was the first side that I cut, and it did smudge a little bit. I didn't think about cleaning the blade, but everything after that, it's all clean, so we're good. These are actually the page numbers. I got a little bit close in the back. Yeah, whoops. So this is what she looks like. I am really, really excited. So actually before I even cut things down, I did actually score a little line right here and on the back. Oops, kind of harder to see on the back, so that when I open up that last page, it folds, it like opens up a little bit better. Ooh dear, the bottom is not fully glued. That's great. So I'm hopefully going to have some sort of a notebook cover. So the fact that my actual cover is not the strongest will not be the end of the world. But yeah, you know, first kind of big attempt at a notebook that I'm going to be using every single day for a year. We'll see how it actually holds up. So once we get inside, you guys can see I have the vellum. I actually love how this came out, and I kind of love having the two different metallics, which is kind of cool. So this is where I want to put my top 5 goals. And I've got my index, and then we just jump right into dot grid pages, and because it is stitched, I have to kind of break in the spine a little bit, but it is one that will lie flat without much effort, except for you apparently. There we go. So that is my bullet journal. I'm really excited to play around with this for this year. So the last thing I want to kind of show you before I get started on the time lapse is how I sort of plan things out, because this was a very new size for me in terms of like actually using it for bullet journal spreads. You know, all of my other spreads, I've been in the same size journal since I started bullet journaling, and so a lot of the spreads that I've had for the longest, I just kind of know how many spaces, how many dots, how many, you know, lines I skip and all of that, and so I don't really have to do much calculating anymore. It's just kind of counting out and we're good to go. So since that is no longer the case, I took this and I actually did just staple it together so the pages wouldn't go flying, and I just very messily did some calculations. So for example, I did 2 lines up here, and then I counted, I was like, oh wait, I can have an even number if I do 3. So I just kind of fixed that. So I know, you know, it's 11.5 in, I do 10 up from the bottom, and then those last 3 are for the header, and then this, just label it so I know it's for my future log, and then a line down the middle. I also did a little diagram for my quarterly goals, so I know it's 15, 15, and 3. And then for my top 5 goals, I think it's going to pan out a little bit like this. And this might be one that I do the header and then kind of leave the rest blank. So I'm not 100% sure how much I will actually get set up with you guys on camera, but anything that I don't get set up, I will go ahead and show you when I do my January plan with me in a few weeks. So you guys will be able to see everything once it's all set up. Then I've got my expenses and finances. So I have my my 12 monthly trackers. So this is for income. Then I've got expenses, and I've also got for Amazon. What I am not doing, which I have done for a long time, is I'm not going to do my bills, because it's kind of nice to see it, but all of my bills are direct withdrawal. So it's not like necessary. It's not like I have to remember to pay my bills. They just come out of my account, and then I know that they've come out because I budget money for that particular bill in YNAB, and then once it comes out, I like confirm that it actually came out. So I don't really need that particular category anymore. And then I think that with this little space over here, I'm not sure yet, but I think I want to do something like goals or savings. So maybe some, more concrete savings goals for the year to kind of break down the information from my top 5, or I'm not sure, but I'm going to have a little bit of space over here that I am hoping to use for something. Then I've got my YouTube editorial calendar. So I just basically did enough so that I would know how I was going to draw out everything. Because of the size of the B6, I won't have as many spaces between. So I used to have, I think it was like 2 boxes between each of my columns here, and I just won't have that. So it works out fine. It just took a minute to make sure I had everything here. And this one I actually did just 1 in, or no, I think I started over here with 3. And so I realized, okay, if I do 2 and 2, then I will be nice and centered and I'll have plenty of space. So I only did, well, actually I did 2 pages. I don't know why I did that. I didn't need to do both because it's the same measurements, but I guess this just looks a little bit cleaner, and that lets me see that it is nice and centered. And then over here I have for my YouTube workflow. And so this took a little bit of playing around to see how I could make the most of it and get in as many videos as possible. So I think I'll be able to get in 15, so 30 videos on the 2 spreads, as long as I basically leave 1 line for the YouTube workflow label basically, and then 2 for all of my different things, and then like basically just having moved this up, and then I have 15 videos that I can do in there. And then for the tracker, I'm gonna keep the same style. I know I'm a creature of habit, and there's not really a good way of doing this just because of how they're shaped. So it's gonna be, I might end up doing 2 and then like have just 1 extra on this side. We'll see. As you can see, this one printed a lot differently because I didn't actually have all of the right settings. So there's not actually that large of a space between things, so it looks much better. So that is basically what I'm gonna do. As I mentioned, some of this stuff, so the spreads themselves, I probably won't fill in on camera, but I will show you how they've been filled in once we actually do my January plan with me. So without further ado, I think it's time to get to time lapse, and I will give you guys a flip through when I'm done. So that is my setup for 2020. I'll give you guys a quick flip through, but you might have noticed that I was pretty low key. I didn't do anything super crazy. I just wanted to honestly get stuff on paper because I need it to be functional. And so I decided that since I tend to do colorful things for my monthlies, that I would just go ahead and do a very simple sort of front of bujo theme for this go around. So what we have is I have my top 5 over here on this front contact page, and I just printed my name and my Sunshine and Stationery email because I made this section kind of small and it already has my hand lettering, so I was like, we'll just print it. Then my top 5, so I just have sort of the keyword, if you will, for each one. So Italy, font, naturalization, invest, and prof bujo. I was thinking about just doing prof, but I kind of need both of these for this goal to actually make sense, so it's a 2-worder, but it is what it is. So just a quick little like general tracker over here, and when I go through an index, I will just do a little number next to here to where they fall on that top 5 spread, which I'll show you in a second. So indexing will happen a little bit later. I'm gonna wait until I get a little bit more in. I might end up indexing after I do my January setup, for example, just because, I don't know, I like to sit down and do all my indexing at once. Then I have my future log. So you guys might know that in previous bullet journals, I have done a 6-month or a multi-month Calendex and a multi-month future log. So it's been 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 6 and 6. It's been different configurations. And with how I am currently planning, so this process that I'm using where I have Google Calendar that I am using to time block and task batch and kind of plan out my week in advance. And since I also have, my Projo, which I am planning to continue into 2020, it just kind of became not necessary for me to have a Calendex in my bullet journal because I have the system that kind of takes care of that in other ways. But I do like having my future log in here. So for example, paydays, I like to write my payday on here. I like to write when I have my holidays. If I have any big trips coming up during the year, I like to have that information. So I wanted to have some way of future planning. Oh, I should have drawn a line down here. I'll have to do that in a second. So I wanted to have some way of future planning, but I really didn't feel like I needed to do the Calendex. And let's be honest, if I'm not going to use the Calendex for its intended purpose, it's a lot of work to set it up. So I decided to just go ahead and do this, and honestly, while I'm thinking about it, it's gonna drive me nuts. Let's go ahead and do this line. So, sorry about this. There's always something that gets a little messed up when I do my setups, and you know, it is what it is. So, let's do, oops. Okay, that looks better. So, now we can move on. Also, since this is a B6, I really don't want to take up too much of my space since I don't have as much space as in an A5, so I just did the first letter of the month. And I originally was like, oh, I'll just do it this way, that works out. And then I realized, oh, if I just do vertical columns, it's by quarter. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So that's the way I did it, and I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Next up are my quarterly goals. So I just have labeled quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I just have the first letter. I got really lazy about writing out the months, but like because I do everything kind of in quarters and then by months, it's really kind of obvious which months they are. So I just have J through M, A through J, J through S, and O through D. So basically January, February, March, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of that fun stuff. And yeah, so this is where, when I go ahead and fill out these spreads, this is where all of this information is going to go. But I am not going to do that in here because it'll just be a lot of me writing and you guys not being able to see since I'm left-handed. So I decided not to do that on camera. Also, we need a line down here. I really just did not fully finish all of my lines on these. So let's go ahead and do that. There. Oh dear. Okay, there we go. I mean, I'm not like super particular. You can see it's just like 6 lines, but if I have the 6 lines, I want to have the 6 lines and not 4. Anyway. Then I've got my top 5 goals, and once again, this one I'm going to set up a little bit later, but as I was kind of thinking things through, I kind of thought that this was going to be how things laid out in terms of how much space I wanted to have for each one. So for example, my font, I'm gonna need a little bit more space. I think investing is gonna take a little bit of brainstorming, a little more space. But things like Italy, for example, I already know the school I want to go to. I basically just need to keep saving money, hash out dates, like, you know, it's not a ton, it's just stuff I need to actually do. This, for example, I already have information on what I need, so I just need to kind of make a note of the different steps of it. And this, I basically have to create a couple of spreads and like get them in the right size notebook and all of that. So like all of these will probably end up having dedicated project pages in the end book. So in the end book of my Projo, for example, I already have for this year, I had a planning page for my Korea trip. So I will have kind of a more dedicated page for like really hashing out the details in the end book of my Projo. But just to have kind of an overview, what are the big steps, I do like to have a spread in my bullet journal. So that is what this is going to be for. Then I have my income and expenses. So I went ahead and just left this entirely blank. I had a moment where I was like, oh, maybe I'll just draw a quick little line here to kind of separate it. But because I don't yet know what I'm going to use it for, I'm just gonna leave it blank and see what comes up. Honestly, if I don't really have anything specific, maybe I'll just do a quote or, you know, who knows. So I have my expenses, and I did actually go through and I updated this. I think my last one, I maybe had like 10 things, and this I think I'm around 15. So I have updated the expenses to make sure I have all my expenses, because these are obviously things I budget for in YNAB, but I didn't actually have enough room to do all of them on this page, so I wanted to make sure that was up to date. I also have for Amazon affiliates, this is the only US based income, and that's why it's got its own little separate section, because it's not in euros. And then I have my 12 months for general income, and I actually at some point need to go through and do something about this one. I totally messed it up. If you saw as I was starting, I was doing all of my horizontal lines, and then had a moment that I was like, if I do this, I'm going to mess one up, and that's exactly what I did here. So that's why I was drawing the vertical lines at the same time, and why this one is so wonky. But this works out really well. I've got the entire year at a glance. We're good to go. So this is where the income goes, what the income is from, and then the date I actually receive it. And then down here, I just have a little space for a total. So that is pretty straightforward. I've been doing this, I think, for a couple of years at this point, and I just really like this setup kind of overall. Then is my YouTube editorial calendar. So I did do a quick test as I was planning. I haven't actually done a physical test, but I did a rough test to make sure that the sticky notes that I got to do for my YouTube editorial calendar from Korea will actually fit on here. But basically, I am thinking that this is going to be my final calendar, if you will, since I already have that really nice big wall calendar of all the things that I want to do. This is just going to be what I ended up posting. So if I end up posting twice a week and that kind of stuff, I have that for here. The one thing I did not think through, and this will come back and bite me, is that, so this is January through June, and then this is July throughout December, which I know that looks like an O, it's supposed to be a D, I kind of messed up. Also, I need to white this out, but the one thing that I forgot to do is I'm planning for next November to do another Mega Goal Planning Week, and I obviously did not take that into consideration. It is, however, on my big wall calendar, but it would be nice to have that tracking over here. Now, what I could do is put it on the bottom of my tracker, but I'm gonna deal with that a little bit later. So these are just my general editorial calendar trackers. So what I do is I write the day up in the top right corner that I will be posting. If I post once a week, that's going to be the Sunday. If I post twice a week, that's gonna be the Thursday and the Sunday. So it's just really simple, but it helps me kind of see at a glance what I've actually ended up posting for YouTube. And I like having it in my bullet journal because that big wall calendar is just that. It's really big and it's designed to hang on the wall, whereas this I can archive and look back at it. I then have my YouTube workflow. I also very intentionally did not actually draw this line, and I probably will go back and do it, but as you can see, this is one of my edges that we got a little close to the edge there, so whoops. But I essentially used as much space as I could, and so this should allow me to get, well, this is, if I counted correctly, 30 videos worth of tracking that I can do on here, which is fantastic. That's like, what, half the year, a little over. So basically just has my same setup as always, where I have the video, so the name of the video, whether it's been filmed, this is where I write the date that I filmed it. If it's been edited, so this section here is all check mark, and then here and here I write the date. So the name of the video, the date it was filmed, whether it's been edited, uploaded, whether I've added tags to the information, whether I've added cards if needed, whether I've programmed the end screen, if I've done the caption and put it in the video, if I've taken the picture for the thumbnail, and if I've done the thumbnail creation in Procreate, and then the date that I post it. So that's just what I do for this particular spread. I find it really helpful, and it keeps me really on track with the big things that I have to do. And that way, if I do, especially if I film a bunch and I'm kind of doing them in batches, I can keep track of where I am, because a lot of times I'll sit down and I'll do all of my editing, and then I'll start getting them uploaded, but then I'll be like, wait a minute, which ones have I done of these particular tasks? And so this way I just can look at a glance what I've actually done for which video, and it helps me not forget stuff, basically. Then I have my YouTube tracker, and as you can see, somehow I either counted incorrectly or had a slightly different, oh, you know what happened? Do you see down here? I accidentally cut off the dot, which is why I thought it was off up here. So it actually is even. I can do 2 in from each side, and then I have enough for a little 5 things there. So I just drew the first line of the boxes so I would know my spacing and the color order and all of that kind of stuff, but that I will fill out a little bit later. And that is it. Honestly, I've gotten it to where, I mean, most of this it's goal setting and YouTube stuff is honestly where most of this stuff, that's what most of this stuff is dedicated for. And so I really I'm only up to page 16 in terms of my front of bullet journal stuff. So that means that page 17 is going to be for January. I will also be doing, I will be doing a separate plan with me for January, because I'm not ready to set that up right now. I want to take some time now that I actually have my spread set up to start filling out the things that I need to fill out. I will also have a Q1 video coming so I can set up Q1 for you guys. And I think because it'll be the new year, I think what I'm going to do is do it separately from my January plan with me, so that I think if I did them together, it would just be too long of a video. So that, in terms of my migrating into a new bullet journal for the new year, that is all I have for you guys for today. I hope that that was clear and you guys can kind of see how I set things up. I hope that also was a good wrap up for this week of goal planning videos. You know, I hope that these videos have given you some food for thought at the very least, maybe some ideas for things that you want to try, even ideas for different goals. I don't know. I just thought, since this is a process that I am personally going to go through in order to set up for the new year, why not film it and take it along with you guys? So please let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy having this little week of posting every day? Did you guys find it helpful? Do you have any things that you wish you could have seen more in detail? Let me know and I will try and work it in for next year. So that is all I have for you guys today. You guys will have a video on Sunday, so I will see you very, very soon. And with that, I will see you next time. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.